Yeah, Johnny. Well, oftentimes they can avoid authorities in one state by moving across state lines, not registering with the new state they moved to, and starting a new life. It's a problem that law enforcement officials tell us is growing. For 4 years, Selena Spain Frank avoided registering as a sex offender. She was able to preach and volunteer at 2 Philadelphia area churches without anyone knowing about her past.
We were not aware of that until you told us.
James Hartman is the spokesperson for Metropolitan Community Churches, the denomination where Spain was preaching. According to New York State court records, in 2016, Spain admitted to having sex with a minor in the church parking lot where she was the pastor. At the time, Spain identified as a man using a different first name. Spain pleaded guilty to sexual misconduct, down from a third-degree rape charge. She was to register as a sex offender for 20 years, but she stopped registering in 2018 after she moved to New Jersey. Officials there issued a warrant for her arrest a year later. Shortly after that, Spain began identifying as a woman using the name Selena. It wasn't until last summer that U.S. Marshals found Spain in Philly and arrested her for failure to register, a federal felony.
It's alarming to the community that she was out there in plain view.
Rob Clark is the supervisory deputy of the Eastern Pennsylvania office of the U.S. Marshals. He says Spain isn't the only one to be hiding in plain sight.
There's hundreds of non-compliant sex offenders, and there's not as many investigators to go after them.
As of February 1st, more than 1,000 sex offenders in our tri-state region were in violation of state registry laws. Of those, at least 320 have active warrants for their arrest for failure to register as a sex offender. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michelle Rotella oversees child sex offender cases for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
It is an emerging area that we're starting to prosecute and that we're seeing more and more violations of.
She says one of the challenges in tracking down missing sex offenders is the different state registries.
There's not always sharing among different states in terms of registration information.
We found one example of a man who's listed as an absconder in Pennsylvania, but is registered in Florida. We called Florida authorities to verify.
As of 3 weeks ago, then he was still there? Okay. And there's no warrant out for his arrest or anything like that? Like he's in compliance?
Pennsylvania State Police says otherwise.
Just because they absconded up here and properly registered elsewhere, they would still be considered absconded.
But when we checked with Philly Police and the District Attorney's Office, they say no warrant exists for the man.
So there's no one blanket registration that covers the United States. So it does present different difficulties.
Each state has its own rules when it comes to tiers and which offenders are made public. Since Spain was arrested and charged with the federal crime of failing to register, she now appears on the Pennsylvania Megan's Law list. Failing to register usually carries mandatory prison time. Spain, however, received probation for her violation, which is why we saw her leaving court after her sentencing February 1st.
There was no evidence of any other criminal activity and certainly no evidence of child sexual exploitation.
Spain declined to speak with us. Now, while she no longer volunteers at one of the 2 churches she previously helped with, she is continuing to volunteer at the other and has the full support of the pastor there. For the investigators, Claudia Vargas, NBC10 News.